Estonia. Mr. Roivas, it's a great pleasure to have you in this live webinar. Thank you so much for your time. This is being broadcasted live at the same time from our Facebook page, so there will be a lot of people that we have announced it and they will be watching it live, and we have only sent this invitation link to a few selected students as well as friends. Just a quick introduction. Mr. Roivas was the Prime Minister of Estonia from March 2014 until November 2016, where at the same time he was also the head of the Reform Party. And before that, he was a Minister of Social Affairs from 2012 to 2014. Mr. Roivas continues to serve in the Estonian Parliament, but what is the most interesting thing and why I was always fascinated about his work is his interest and work with new technologies, with blockchain, with digital identity. And it was during Roivas' tenure as Prime Minister where actually the e-citizenship was at the beginning. So it was in his the first year of the e-citizenship was during his tenure. So he has been very much involved with this, and as we all know, Estonia is a leader in terms of digital government and digital everything. So it's absolutely a great pleasure. Without further ado, Mr. Roivas, I will give the floor to you. Just quickly, we have 40 minutes in total for this call. Mr. Roivas will have a short presentation of about 10 minutes, and then we can do question and answers in the second part. You will raise your hands as the attendee, and then we will give you the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And can you hear me well?
Yes, very well.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. And my task today is to try to give a glimpse to this kind of society that we will all see post-COVID-19, post this terrible virus. I'm sure that you have all noticed that it is already changing our lives a lot. And I will hereby explain some of the things that Estonia has been doing already and what I think will become global trends. So currently, of course, just perhaps before I go to these details, let me just tell you about Estonia. It is up north in the northeastern corner of Europe, and we are a small country, only 1.3 million people. But what is good, especially in the time of social distancing, is that we have quite a large territory. So we are bigger than Denmark or Switzerland. And as said, now it is especially important. Now, this obviously is not a recent picture. That is basically 10% of Estonian population gathering in one square. But this is just to invite you to imagine the world when we are back to normal and how our behavior will change and what lessons we actually learn from today's world. Now, Estonia is in a better position also not only because we have quite a large territory and quite a few people, or not very many people, but we are also in a good position because we have a digital identity, and all the documents that we sign are also digital. So this means that working from home for us is much easier to organize than in a bit more traditional world, but I will come to that shortly. Now, why digital ID and digital signature is important, before I go to that, let me just tell you an analog. So there was not very long time ago a world where only cash was the means of payment. That meant that in order to buy something from somebody, you actually needed to physically meet. And it was already 60 years ago when this kind of card, it didn't look like a modern credit card back then. This is a bit more modern one, but this was invented already 60 years ago. So all the time with this credit card, we have had at least theoretical possibility to pay remotely. And of course, when the internet emerged, and that is a bit later than the card was founded, that actually made it possible to have internet payments. That also gives the access to your wallet when you take an Uber or Bolt, which is an Estonian company very similar to Uber, or you pay for your hotel room or whatever. So in principle, this credit card invention that is already 60 years old is key to your wallet remotely. Now, of course, we could argue that this is not particularly safe, because if you look at the credit card, you see the number is on one side and the name is on the same side, and the money through that is usually asked also when you have digital payments. And then there is a secret number. And the secret number, of course, who could ever guess, is on the other side of the plastic. So basically, if you lose it, there is a chance that somebody can make payments on your behalf. There are much more innovative solutions now. This is just a screenshot from one Estonian founded fintech, but of course there are many others. And the point is, we have already long time ago established a way how we can give remote access to our wallets in order to pay for something without actually meeting the people. Now, when we talk about signatures or identities, then there is most of the world still using the very conventional identity, which means that you need to go somewhere and show your passport physically, and somebody can then check if this picture in the passport is resembling in any way your face. Of course, none of you have before seen my signature, so it is written next to my name. You all assume that this was actually written by me, but let me tell you a secret. You have no way of knowing whether it was me, whether it was my secretary, or whether it was just somebody who falsified it very easily. You can see that my signature isn't particularly difficult to falsify. And, you know, I have heard stories that when I went to school, I heard stories that some of my classmates actually falsified their parents' signatures to get out of trouble. I, of course, never did it. I'm sure that none of you ever did it. But, you know, I have heard that some people might have done it when they were 10 years old. And if you think about it, is this way that even 10-year-olds can falsify the safest and most reasonable way to sign documents? And of course, in today's world where we are at now, there is no good way of getting those paper documents from one place to another without actually meeting with people. Okay, there is mail, which is theoretical possibility, but it is hugely safe. So imagine if you could have this all taken digital without any delays. And if it would be like 1,000 or million times more secure than just handwritten scribble on white paper. And today it's no longer a rocket science, but when Estonia first started using digital ID and digital signature, it was very, very unique. We started using it around 20 years ago. So it's really like in the beginning of the century. And how it works is basically you just take any number of files. It can be documents, it can be PDFs, it can be whatever file you have in your computer, and you take either your ID card or your mobile phone, and with those, I can briefly show you in a moment. You just can easily sign it. You can. The only thing that you actually need to see from here is the part that says the signature is valid, and you might also be interested to see when it was signed. So just below my name on the box on the right, you can see that this particular document was signed on 11th of January at 10 p.m. basically. So why I was working that late on 11th of January 2 years ago remains a mystery to myself as well. But anyways, it might be in some cases very important to know when something was signed. When we go back to the handwritten signature, there is no way of knowing when it was signed. Even if I write a date underneath, it is very, very difficult to say whether I falsified it or whether it's correct. And this is just some technical details that we can pass very easily. Now, how it works technically, it's again, most of the countries of the world today have it in some way. It's just a two-way authentication. Basically, you can either use your ID that has a chip on it, or you can use your mobile phone, which is combined with a SIM card that has special functionalities, plus a PIN code. And this together, as it is two ways, it creates a very, 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 very long encrypted key, which is basically, at least with today's technology, impossible to break or falsify in any way. Now, another important thing that I want to point out is how countries keep their data. And what else in today's world is important to keep safely, securely, and easy to access as health data. And this picture is from one European country, and this is health data in a cellar of one hospital. And as you can see, it is just a pile of papers that is in some drawers, and it's not particularly safely kept there, and it's not very easy to access if the patient has to go to a doctor in another town. If you live in let's say one town and you need to go to a hospital in another, if your health data is kept this way, you know, this doctor in this second town does not know anything about you. And in Estonia, we organized it this way that that all the patient's data is digitally centrally managed, so that any doctor, when they write a case summary about you, it goes directly to this electronic health register, and you as a patient can at any time check what the doctors have written about you. You can see your prescriptions there, and if there is anything sensitive that you don't want anyone to see, any doctors to see, of course, only doctors have access to this system, then you can just easily, with a couple of clicks, you can close the access for any doctors, and this case summary disappears. But in most cases, I don't think we would you know, be shy if doctors know that my blood type is A positive, or if they know what diagnosis I have been, or what prescriptions I have taken previously, or something like that. It helps me as a patient. Of course, it helps a lot the cure as well if I need something. And also, of course, in order to make sure that there is no misuse of data, and I think this is very, very critical when we are talking about any digital information system, it is very, very important to have a log as well. So basically, I can, as a patient, at any time see who has looked at my data, from January 2017 to January 2018. We could just play with the dates here and get any other date there, and I can see that there are like a couple of cases opened, and I can see exactly who has done and what. And this particular doctor, it's in Estonian, but basically it says that she has registered a document, and it was employment health thing. So basically checking my eyesight and how tall I am and how much I weigh. Now, this is, as you can see by now, I enjoy showing you pictures about myself. This is from the time when I was Prime Minister and I was voting. As you know, all politicians love to go to vote. It is a good ceremony. You take the ballot, you put it in the box very, very, very slowly so that everybody can take pictures. In Estonia, we do it a lot less glamorous way, but much more effectively. And this is me voting from my office, just using my computer, which is connected to internet, and using my digital ID. Again, much safer and much more convenient, especially during the time of virus. I know that there was a piece in Financial Times that was discussed how Americans could vote during the time of coronavirus. Well, this is one of the ways. If you have very safe system, if you have proper digital ID, you can just do it over the internet. And this is, I promise you, the last picture of myself. This is the only service in Estonia that you still cannot do digitally. So even Estonians have to show up to get married. I think it kind of makes sense that you show up before your own wedding. But all the other services, all other public services, and also most of the important private services, you can do without leaving your home. You can do it from your couch, just logging in with your secure ID and using your laptop or iPad or whatever device you use. And the last point I want to make is that in addition to world starting using more digital identity and more digital signature, and thus also, of course, taking all the registers and all the information digital, there will be also changes in human behavior. This picture is taken at the campus of Tallinn University of Technology, and both of the vehicles in the picture are autonomous. The small one is a delivery robot from Starship Technologies. The bigger one is an autonomous shuttle built by Alvetech, also Estonian company. And the idea is that those vehicles can deliver anything to you contactlessly. This can be also, the bus can also be last mile taxi or shuttle for you that can take you around without you needing to meet any human drivers. So we can probably come back to that in the Q&A phase, but I think that people will be much more prone to this kind of developments in the society, much more prone to taking autonomous seriously, contactless seriously. And I hope, and this is me being very optimistic as always, I hope that this terrible virus that we are facing right now is actually helping us to become more digital societies. And with that, I thank you very much. And of course, I am very open to your questions. And please do contact me in LinkedIn or follow me on Twitter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roivas. Very, very interesting presentation, and obviously proud because Estonia is the, if I could say, the poster child of the digital ID and digitalization in the world, not only in Europe, but it's been kind of a miracle all around the world. Now, my question is, the COVID has happened really fast. It has really taken us by surprise and by storm. And for example, we're having troubles now at the university. We cannot go at the university and sign documents and stamp, even the tax documents for the university, because we don't do things digital as you would do them in Estonia. How do you think COVID will really accelerate this global trend? What can we see around the world? What Estonia has been doing for over 20 years now?
Well, I think signing things digitally is not a technological issue anymore, because it has been available for, as I said, 2 decades, but it is often a political hesitation. Political leaders are not sure if the societies are ready to take everything digital. They only see the threats, which have to be taken seriously, which are there, but they don't see the opportunities as much. I hope that the current crisis will open our eyes more and more also with the opportunities. I think it's obvious that in today's world, if you can have a fully functioning digital government, if you have a fully functioning digital ID, you can take care of all the official business without leaving your home. I think this is really useful. And the same applies to university. If you want to sign an agreement of some sort, if you want to give your signature that you have received something, or if you need to securely log into some e-lectures, for example, this all, or some data that is available only for scientists. This is again helped a lot if the digital identification is in place. And let me once more reiterate that many countries in the world have digital ID today, but the problem is that it is not widely used, and it should be widely used. In 2019, Estonians signed more documents digitally than the rest of the world combined, and there is only 1.3 million Estonians, so it's million with M, not with B. We are not equal to India in size. We are like 1,000 times or 1 letter smaller.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will open the floor to participants. I will start with Gerion. Gerion, I'll unmute you so you can have a question, because I've seen you have raised your hand, I think.
Yeah, it means I really appreciate the whole picture that was given from Estonia, and I would like only like 2 or 3 tips in terms of what we can do right now as citizens, let's say, to go towards this model, because we accept that very soon we'll hopefully get to the Estonian digitalization model. But right now, what are the measures that we need to take to overcome this situation? Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's a very good question, and I think the answer is relatively simple. None of this is reasonable to do without proper digital ID. So just like credit card took us from the time when we needed to meet and hand out cash to each other, the digital ID part has to take us from the time where we have to meet and sign documents together or send physical paper to each other to the time where we can safely e-meet or safely sign documents remotely. And in my opinion, it doesn't matter so much whether it is plastic ID card that has additional functionalities or whether it is your smartphone that you use for this digital ID. I think it has to be secure enough. The Estonian answer to this is two-way authentication and the latest possible encryption. And I think in a couple of years we might consider doing it with biometry. We might consider doing it in whatever next level technology. But I don't think that the technology is today the obstacle. I think we could very easily introduce it either software-based or better if it's based like on two-way authentication already. So the technology is there. And once this is possible, then we can basically agree which parts of the society are most important to take digital. What I think voting is among the last, that it is like the most extreme thing almost that you can do digitally. There are much more practical things, much more urgent things. One example is a population register. For example, if I move from one apartment to another, there are lots of state authorities that need to know that. And I need to register my official address. Now, I have no way of remembering all the state authorities that need to know that, because who remembers all the parties that you could possibly be involved with? It could be tax authority, it could be doctors, it could be the authority that gives you driver's license. They all need to know where you live so that they can send you the renewed driver's license, or they can know which municipality gets you part of your taxes. Now, it's almost impossible to inform them all, but how we have solved it in Estonia is that when I move from one apartment to another, I register it in population register, and all those government agencies that have the legal right to know where I live, this includes tax board, this includes several others, they can just ask automatically. The information systems can communicate with each other. They can ask this particular information from the population register. So instead of making me to inform all the separate registers, the registers can, to a certain extent, communicate with each other. And of course, it's also important to emphasize that they can only communicate to this extent that the law allows them to. For example, both my doctor and a tax authority have the legal right to know where I live, but tax authority cannot know anything about my health, and doctor cannot know anything about my income. So they don't have the need to know, and they cannot know, because this is involving my privacy.
There are two questions that came in the Q&A, one from Dritan and one from Eglent. What is Estonia doing to retain its leadership position in digitalization? And the second one is related to it. Is the digital ID only for the Estonian citizens, or can people from other countries apply for it as well? If so, how and why? And I think this is more related to the e-citizenship as well.
Yes, let me come back to the slides. One of the slides that I skipped, I want to show you. That was no. Let me just go through very quick. Yeah, here it is. So basically, I believe that the world is better off if all of the countries provide digital IDs to all of their citizens, and then we can properly communicate with each other. So you, wherever you happen to be, sign the document from your end, and I sign it being here in Tallinn. And we'll even have some of those services working across border. For example, we have the digital prescriptions that are issued in Estonia are also valid and functionable in Finland, and vice versa. So this already works. Now, until most of the countries get their own versions of digital ID, Estonia, in the year of 2014, invented a thing called e-residency, which basically means that we hand out digital identities to citizens of any other country. As you can see, there are already people from 167 countries having that, and we have altogether more than 50,000 e-residents. And what is, of course, most beneficial for Estonia, and some ask why we are doing that, it is there is more than 6,000 companies founded by the e-residents. And of course, there is no point of taking your company to a country only because you can manage it remotely. It also, of course, needs to be that our tax system and our legal system is very competitive in the European Union. But those things together have attracted more than 6,000 companies, which is a very, very important contribution to Estonian economy. And the first question, what we are doing to maintain our position? Well, in order to have the bike running, you need to keep pedaling. There are lots of ideas that can be still done. Digital government will never be ready. There is always room for improvement, just like computers are developing. There is room for better public services as well, and also improving the security constantly. For example, we came up with this kind of invention, like it's called data embassy, and this means that the most important registers of Estonia are simultaneously running in several countries. So basically, even if there is no power at all in Estonia, or even if it's completely impossible to run the services from Estonia, we can have it up and running from Luxembourg, for example. So that's also like just one thing. And it's also important that we constantly keep developing our legal framework to cope with the changes that are going to happen. There are two sorts of politicians. I would say that majority of politicians in the world are afraid of AI, are afraid of autonomous vehicles, and they see only the part that is taking away today's jobs. But I think we should look at other way around. We should look at the opportunities. Yes, there will be hundreds of thousands bus drivers jobless. Yes, this will happen. But would we actually want back those jobs that our ancestors had, let's say, 200 years ago? Would we really want to go back to the time without computers, without machines? Would we want to do manual labor? No, we wouldn't. And why do we think that our kids want to keep the jobs that we are having today? So I think the revolutions, so to say, agricultural and industrial and so forth, they have all actually made the world a better place and at least more productive place. You can always argue what is better, but it definitely has become more productive. And autonomous and AI are taking us there as well. But again, it's very important to get the legal basis right. There are lots of issues that need to be taken care of, and if you have a legal anarchy for a good thing, it could cause you lots of problems.
Thank you. And there is a comment by Dritan, who the question, he said, by the way, I'm an Estonian e-resident, so in a way, Mr. Former Prime Minister is my former Prime Minister.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. I think the COVID has really posed to us a lot of challenges as well as opportunities ahead, and I'm sure it will accelerate further the technological development. But with that, it comes a lot of risk, and you have seen, I think, perhaps in Estonia as well. So cybersecurity is becoming more and more important every day, and then we have blockchain as an alternative to a more secure if I could say, technology. So what's your take on blockchain, how blockchain will accelerate our digital transformation of the world?
Mm-hmm. Well, as a government, Estonia has used blockchain to safeguard some of our critical data and to keep it decentralized and to keep it safe. I think one thing that is even more important than data privacy is data integrity. I could deal with the publicity knowing that my blood type is A positive. I have said it already here in this panel several times, but if somebody could change it in the register to, let's say, A negative, I could potentially be in lots of trouble when I need a blood transplant. So blockchain we have used also to store some hashes of the health data in order to make sure that somebody doesn't meddle with the data without the proper permissions. I also think that blockchain is reminding us, or use of blockchain is reminding us that there is a lot of room to improve all sorts of transactions to be in real time. I mean, there is still, even with the central payment systems that the European countries use, there are still gaps sometimes, let's say on holidays or some hours where the payments don't function cross-border in real time. Where, could you imagine the time that phone calls or emails would only work from 9 to 5? It is not possible. And the use of blockchain technology hopefully reminds the world also that transactions should happen in real time as well.
We have some really interesting questions from Facebook coming, if I may. One is, how much time would it take to implement an electronic voting system in a country, especially in a country which has never tried it before? There is one question, and one related to that. What were the savings of the Estonian taxpayers' money by switching to open source technologies instead of proprietary?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, we are not only using open source, but this is a longer answer. What Estonia is doing, what brings a huge saving is that we have a central layer, so to say, that we call the X road, that is having all the ability to make different information systems to interact with each other, and they all need to be linked only to this base layer, not with each other. So the base layer is actually saving them a lot of time and money to make all those separate connections. And the first question you asked was, can you remind me again?
The first question was, how much time would it take to implement an electronic voting system?
Well, Estonia started thinking about it in 2001, and we had the first election digitally in 2005. So that would mean 4 years. But having said that, that was a time, you cannot compare 2005 with 2020 in terms of how many computers people have, how much internet connections there are around. So today it would be much easier, but still it's more of a political discussion than technology question. Technologically, you can have it up and running in less than a year, but it requires political discussions, and also it requires proper design. For example, we have thought how we can make sure that nobody's watching behind your shoulder when you are voting, and a way how to address this was that we made it possible to repeat your vote. So basically, if you are a politician and you give me a computer, say, okay, please vote for me in front of your eyes. I can do that. I can, you could even bribe me. You could give me 50 euros for that. But then I can go home, log in with my own computer, and change my vote. And I can do it however many times until the last minute when the votes are closed or the polls are closed. So this is just a very simple solution to a very technical or very important problem. And what I want to reiterate once more is, without digital ID, without a properly designed system, I would never recommend internet voting. It has to be very, very safe. It has to be properly designed. Otherwise, it would be counterproductive.
There is quite an interesting question. I wanted to bring it here. It's the COVID-19, and is there any example of the use of high-tech and artificial intelligence in Estonia to fight the coronavirus spread, especially since you've had less cases than most other countries?
Yes, we are using a lot of science-based modeling. I wouldn't say AI so much, but it's a lot we had to build it very fast, and there is a lot of very useful economic or not economic, but mathematic models that are built by Estonian scientists, so that we can estimate how many hospital beds we need, what is the situation with the ICU and so forth, and this helps the government to plan ahead. What is also interesting is several European countries, the closest geographically to us who has done that is Lithuania, have introduced different apps to track people's behavior and contacts and whether they stay at home. Of course, it's a question of privacy. It's a political decision how far you want to go with that, and then there are lots of different views to that. But in principle, the Lithuanian app I have downloaded myself to try out, and it's really, really cool. So it's called Karantinas. Any one of you can try it out, and it's really innovative in my opinion.
So since we're coming at the end of our time, I will have the final question, if I may. It comes from Kustrim Jaki. What Estonia is doing for IoT in terms of digitalizing the old infrastructure, such as utilities, facility management, agriculture, etc.?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first requirement for IoT, of course, is to start using the fastest possible internet, and this is something that Estonia wants to be among the first countries to start using 5G and to making it available. There are lots of projects that involve IoT elements that are also like government supported, building smart cities, lots of things linked with automation of transport and many other things. So there is basically no single entry point to the IoT plans of Estonia, but I would say that definitely this is, there is no question whether this is happening. The question is which countries are enabling it first. And I think this is a good thing to conclude with. Technological development is happening as we speak. And the world is becoming more digital. And the question to all of us is basically, if we want to be pioneers of this, if we want to be early adopters of this, if we want to benefit from this, or if we believe that we can somehow, should just close our eyes and think that this goes away, or this can be postponed. And in principle, it can be postponed, but the loss will be huge if we postpone important digital developments.
If I may, I'm sorry, I missed one more question. I see, just in terms of the branding, Estonia has been a great example globally in terms of the EST concept. The question is, how can small countries, for example, like Kosovo, what would be your recommendations for both state and non-state actors in terms of creating a national brand?
Well, actually, let me tell you about this EST pro bono campaign just briefly. We had a state-sponsored plan to get ourselves a new country branding, a new logo, so to say. And to be very honest, it failed. It wasn't very beautiful. It didn't make any sense, and people didn't like it at all. And then we had a friend of Estonia, who's not even Estonian himself. His name is Peter Kenti, and he's from Netherlands, from Eindhoven. And he just, as a citizens' initiative, told us that, guys, look at your country name. In English, it starts with EST, Estonia, EST. And EST is the end of so many words, including best, including fastest, including smartest, including funniest, also modest, that we are bragging about ourselves. So basically, EST is the superlative of English language, and it should be used to advertise Estonia. And he has made a lot of ideas how to use it. And now, luckily, it took us some time for the government to agree that actually this EST is much better than the government-sponsored version. And now we are all using it also in our official country branding. Now, my recommendation to Kosovo, I'm not sure if KOS would work in the same way, but being small, doing something differently, that's a huge opportunity. By the way, I was one of the 5 people that visited Kosovo as the first international delegation, international political delegation after Kosovo became independent. So that was, and Estonia was among the first countries to recognize Kosovo on independence. So that was a very, very symbolic moment to us, and I have very good memories from that. And I think Kosovo reminds me a lot of Estonia a bit some years back, and when Kosovo started, it had to start some of the things from the scratch. So in a way, it's hugely difficult, but it also gives you the chance that there is no legacy. There is opportunity to do everything state of the art, like from the best technology. For example, when Estonia regained its independence in the early 90s, then it was exactly the time when internet was becoming a thing. And I think that helped Estonia to become a digital nation as well, because we thought that, okay, let's go with this internet trend. Today, I think less and less people use personal computers, and more people use tablets or phones. And again, like perhaps Kosovo can be the first country to take some of the digital government elements to apps, which is not very common still in the world, surprisingly, I would say. And perhaps the Kosovan digital ID can bear elements of face recognition that many of our phones have. So, just being different in a positive way is a great image. And I would say that most of the countries that are the size of Estonia and Kosovo are not known for anything globally. And Estonia found its thing. We didn't plan it to be a PR thing. We just were very practical people and we wanted to do things effectively. but it became a brand as well, that we are digital and we are small and agile and very developing very fast. And I would consider Kosovo having similar opportunities, and I know that the urge to become very innovative is clearly there, even though I haven't visited you for some time, but I hope I can do it again once the borders are open.
So it's a chance for a comeback, but this time not talk only to government bureaucrats, but to I would say witness the very lively startup scene and the digital community of Kosovo, if I may so. Thank you so much, Mr. Roivas. Was very absolutely wonderful to have this conversation with you. Thank you for your time. We exceeded the time that we had agreed for 10 minutes. And thank you everybody for attending, and there's been quite a good attendance also from Facebook, and we continue those events. On Monday we have General Wesley Clark, which was the NATO commander during the Kosovo war, so we'll see with some of you on Monday. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you once again, Mr. Roivas.